My name is Leroy White. I'm born and raised on an Indian reservation in Washington State. I was the seventh child of nine children. My mother raised us. I learned a lot about different cultures that way. As I was growing up, mother wanted to send us to Sunday school, so I go to Sunday school. And it was nice. It was great. I love my Sunday school teacher, but there was always something that wasn't quite right with me, and that's I already knew God. And I already had a memory of being in a different place. Sitting in Sunday school was fine, but I was an unusual child in that respect. This is the first time I've ever shared this, and I know before I pass away, I want to share it one time publicly. What I've done with this, I'm not setting up a website or anything else. I'm not talking to others about it. So it's a one-time shot. It was nice enough that Tia allowed me to come on here and do this. It troubled me a lot to have those memories and to be different from the other children, my buddy, she were all the rest of my family members. Finally, I asked my mom, I think I was about 9 years old. I said, Mom, I have a memory that I can't get rid of, and it bothers me a lot. So she asked me what it was. And I said, I remember being in a different place. I remember being in a place where there was this orb, this being, and it was all power and all love, and this great congregation. And I can remember meeting you there and my sister Mary and lots of other people. And then we were allowed to, if you will, decide to come down to Earth. We decided what our families would be like, what my mother would be like, what my life would be like. We were able to make those choices. And I did. I came down for one reason, and that was to let people know down here on Earth, just as kind of a shadow world, that there's a light. The light is God, the light is eternal. And it's our true home. It's what we're really supposed to know and be able to walk in. I'd lay down on my back on the hill above Nest Hill and talk to my Heavenly Father. Every time I was a toddler, a little bigger probably. And so it's always something I've always known. And I chose to come here and I chose my family. It seems like the more that we go through here, the better education we get about what we don't want and what we do want. It's a pretty simple program that way. But anyway, so mom looked at me and she said, tell me about it. And I did. I told her the whole story and her mouth fell open. I never saw my mom with an expression like that on her face before. And she said, I have to tell you, when you were born, your umbilical cord was around your neck and you were clinically dead. The doctor revived you. He was able to cut the cord and revive me. The time that I was dead, time in heaven is a whole lot different than time down here. But for whatever time that amounted to be, was my memories of being in that other place. That I have to share. What I needed to share about this whole story was that it's real, that God is, and that seeking Him is probably the best thing that we can do in whatever shape and form that takes you. It doesn't matter. I do Native American spirituality. I love Buddhist temples. I've never been in a place where there's more peace in a Buddhist temple. I go to lots of other places, but the one thing is, I believe that there's a Father, a higher power, a God, whatever you want to call him, a source that is ultimate power and ultimate love. And He wants one thing from us as kids. He wants us to come back and in a way that is loving, and it seems like we had a choice. We have a choice. And I think that choice originated in heaven. We can go for all of the marbles. We can shoot for success and riches and acclaim and all the rest of that stuff that is ego driven, or we can do just the opposite. We can operate it from a base of love and some real genuine humility and all the rest of that. I'm not a sound like that preaching. I don't mean to be, but this is a message that I got in heaven that I was supposed to bring here. In that way, it's just a little bit important to me. that we get to have a relationship with our own higher power, whatever version that might be for you. To me, it was a huge, beautiful light orb of love and power. But I'd call it the Christ energy that's created all things. But yeah, coming back was interesting. I like going into a dark tunnel, and then I didn't really have any memories as a baby. I know that I went through some things that were not good, but I don't have the memories of those things.
Leroy, can you tell me how you died and what happened in that experience?
Yes, I can. I felt like I was in this dark place with lots of other souls. And then I was taken from there to my mother's womb. And in my mother's womb, the movement of bringing a baby in a womb, I ended up with the umbilical cord around my neck and it strangled me. So when it was time for her to deliver, I was already dead. And the doctor did revive me. I don't have the memory of that, but yes, I died in the womb. I went to heaven. When he revived me, I came back. That was my near death experience.
What was heaven like?
Well, I saw thousands of souls, animals, gardens, butterflies. I heard beautiful singing. We knew each other, and it's like there was one collective, unconscious communication between everybody, and it was always good and always positive. We were spirit. I was a spirit being, but it didn't mean I wasn't Leroy. It was who I am, but I had this spiritual body instead of just this physical one. And so I was able to do things there that, and then, and here, obviously, I was able to look out into the cosmos, the universe, and I could travel there if I wanted to. All I had to do was want to. And you had that kind of power, but it just seemed so natural and normal when you're in heaven. There were angels between God's kids, and there's this unknowable essence, this thing that's even above the Christ energy, above all the different gods that we have names for down here. There's something beyond that generated all of them that I never got to know except in my heart. But that God, one of the scriptures says you can't see the face of God and that he's spirit. Well, I believe that God is spirit and above all things and nameless and unknowable. But his emanations are all the different ones, like the Christ light, like that orb that I knew in heaven, like many of the others that have come down here to begin religions, major religions. God is not quiet. He's just impossible to reach. So he reaches us. He reaches us through other people. To Christ, who people say they have a misunderstanding in Buddhism. They say that Buddha did not believe in God. What he didn't believe in was names and labels. He believed there was an energy called good that was attainable for everybody. That's not far off of the same thing that I believe and know to be true. It's always available 24/7. What else was it like in heaven? You knew people, you had friends. You met together with just Christ energy fairly frequently. I was sitting in a certain spot when a large congregation was assembled. And below me, sitting on to my right, was my mother. And on the other side was my sister Mary. And I know that my sister Linda was there and saw her. And I met people that I had worked with and for in my life here, and that's in there first. And I recognized them. And no, I didn't run up to them and say, "Hey, I knew you in heaven," because they weren't all ready for that sort of thing. But there was always this one face of one female that I still never met. And she just had a beautiful smile, and I knew it was like my best friend. other friends I had too, we would walk and we would communicate and we would have outings that were just filled of sunshine. And it was a very happy place. There was joy and peace, of course, a lot of peace. Um, it had all the things that we have down here. They were just differently. There were animals, butterflies, birds, grasses, knolls, little hills. There were other buildings that looked a lot like Roman architecture almost. The Pantheon was there, looking thing. It was gold. There was gold, but it was inside this temple, this congregation place. The walls were like alabaster. I remember that. They were tall. They must have been 20 feet high. The hallways that led into the main hall. So, yeah, it's all still there. This is a worldly carbon copy down here of what heaven is like. So remove all the pollution and all the evil and all the hate and all the nonsense. And it's very much like this on your very best day to me. It felt like I was connected to everybody and everything around. That there was a harmony that was almost like a song that manifested in me and everybody and everything else. And it was like that was our communication. It wasn't words. It was just beautiful, spiritual resonance that just emanated from everybody and everything. It was always peaceful, dude. So peaceful. The water was blue and there were rivers and ponds and trees, cypress and lots of other different kinds. But how I felt in detail was I was so much at peace. And love was not something we do, it was something that we wore. So peaceful and loving and just grateful every second being there. I don't know. I didn't feel any pain ever. I mean, you don't stub your toe or anything. We are spirit beings, and so we're God's children. We're all powerful, but that's not an issue. We don't crave that. We don't seek that. We're just there loving each other and loving who we are and where we are. Our souls are eternal. They come from God, and they're part of that. So that's always the same kind of a youthful exuberance, I would say, early 20s, maybe 30 years old, mostly. I don't remember seeing any babies. I don't remember seeing any old frail people. I would say middle age to early 20s, maybe late teens. But yeah, something like that. There was an age group for sure, probably. I feel honestly the people that I saw were around their 20s, early 20s, late teens. Yeah, mostly.
Did you feel your body resembled that age as well?
Yes, I did. And that was interesting that I went from that to this thing I was just reading its tabs and depending on mom for sustenance. I'm sure that was quite a transition.
When you were in this place, did you have any thoughts or feelings or emotions?
Yes. I would say, yeah, they had thought. Not the same as we have here. They weren't in base there when they weren't projecting into the future or worrying about the past. I think our thoughts largely guided us to be with each other, to go on those hikes, to be called by this huge orb or congregation meeting that would enter us. It would enter us in the way of, well, I guess you'd have to call it thoughts, guidance, at least, and they would be direct. Yeah. So we had thoughts, feelings. The feelings were always, you couldn't look on anything in heaven without appreciation, especially each other. It was like blade of grass. even here, people who are so inclined can find God in the smile of an infant or in a leaf falling from a tree or water running or a small pond, um, geese flying overhead. Same thing there. God was in everything, but it was more real. And we did have the kind of thoughts that led to stress or anxiety. I was just not present. That's a thing for Olin, I think. So thoughts and feelings. What else was there?
Emotions. I guess it's the same as feelings, but
Emotive, the outpouring. Every, I think we all blessed each other. Everything blessed us, and we blessed each other. That's really emotion. It was always, everything was always great.
did someone come to you and tell you that you had to leave?
No, actually, I volunteered. This is the part that sounds religious, and believe me, to me, it's not. But there are beings in heaven that God created. We talk about giants down here and all these other past things. When you're in heaven, you'll see a lot of that. You'll see what that is. There's beings that were created by, and one of them was, for the word we hear here as Lucifer, but it was the most beautiful, powerful being that God created in that place. And somehow the ego arose in him and he rose up. He wanted to be equal with God. He wanted to be like God. And he led about a third of heaven with it. So they didn't see any harm in that. That was taken care of. Or God, that's how our world down here got started, with by those beasts and angels and creations of God that warred against him. I know that sounds so scriptural. I'm sorry for that, but that's what I saw and that's what I understood. And then I knew that all of God's kids down here would be in a fog, like in a dream state. They wouldn't see the reality of spiriting with that vault. And I volunteered to come down here. I said, let me go tell people about you, about this orb of light that we call Christ. Let me go down and help remove the fog, the blinders from other people's eyes. And that's when I chose my family. And then the next thing I remember is going to that dark place. And then there I was. So, and I had a vague memory as I must have been a year old even. I don't know exactly, but I remember two men standing at a table and they were like counting out whatever it was. One was giving the other one money. I came to find out from my mother that my father had sold me as an, he wanted to go back to Illinois, didn't have the means. So he sold me to this couple for $250 in a pickup truck. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I volunteered for when I was in heaven. He wanted that. Yeah. So it probably at least a year of not being aware of anything else. There was at least a year, pretty sure. I told my mom that I had this memory, and I told her what it was, and she put it all together for me. She said that her and Leroy, my father, had been to cop in Ashfield, and he got himself in some trouble. I'm not going to say due to why. And he wanted to get back to Illinois real bad because that's where he came from. And there was no money. He had been fired, and he thought he was going to do mom a favor. I was the seventh child, not that old yet. So he found a couple in Electric City, Elmer City, that wanted a baby and had some means, or it gave him a pickup truck and $250. And he spent some time trying to talk mom into going with him and everybody else. And she wasn't going to leave any of the kids or her new life. So he took off. And yeah, mom told me about that. She told me about the umbilical cord being wrapped around my neck, the being revived. She told me about my father selling me for $250 in a pickup truck. So that's how I know. I developed anger issues. Not early on. I'd been a Boy Scout. I got purchase attendance in school. It's grade A's. I was little Mr. Sunshine. I helped elderly people out, mow their lawn, go get their mail, whatever they needed, chop wood. The hate that was brought to me from some of the natives there and the desertion by my father. I had a time when I just decided that I was going to say to heck with everything. I started drinking with my friends, smoking cigarettes, and did that, probably started that in 8th grade. And then it became regular really fast. I did drugs and alcohol. And I went into the military. I sobered up long enough to get in the military. And I made a mess of that because my new God was alcohol and drugs and women. So that didn't work out very well for the military or me. I got out and I went down to LA. I just like everybody I'd ever met, loved. I was hurting myself. I was just going to disappear. I went down to Los Angeles, California to be a assistant manager at Miller Hotel, 7th floor down there, and drank every day. Had 5 maids for the hotel, and 3 of them drank regularly. And my deal with them is they could get their 6-pack of beer every day as long as they gave me one. And whenever I had extra money, it was spent on booze. I drank every day. I drank hard every day. And I got alcohol poisoning. I had decided to jump off the top of the Miller Hotel. Ended up go back to have addiction, I guess. And there was a little voice inside me said my life wasn't mine to take. So I got off the ledge and found my little 3-bed hotel room. And I could feel the life draining from me. Had alcohol poisoning. I had hallucinations. I was paralyzed. I couldn't reach the phone to try to get help. I couldn't scream anything. I was about dead. That's when I had a visitation by that orb, but in the form of a man. And I'm going to say Jesus, but to me, that's what it was. Somebody else could have been anything. To me, it was Jesus. And he just reached out and he put life back into me. Within 3 minutes, I was singing an old gospel hymn in the shower, feeling like a 10-year-old boy again. Everything was clean and good. I went down and started volunteering at the Union Gospel Mission. But I was close to death. I could feel my life leaving my body when that appearance happened. So he gave me back life. So he only said 4 words, and I'll always remember it. He said, he looked at me and just a tear. And he said, I gave you life. Meaning to me that it wasn't mine to give. He gave it to him when he was very interested. Anyway, that was the other one. That was a little emotional because I still remember it so vividly. I said I was a Boy Scout, and I was the first one in our little troop, 57 in Spelem, Washington, to get their wife's merit badge, rank. Anyway, I was doing really good. And there was an international jamboree at Bonaparte by Tabasco, Washington. And they came from Scotland and Canada all over. It was just wonderful. The final campfire when everybody's getting ready to break up and go home. I mean, we had archery and we had canoeing and, it was wonderful. It was for a young man. When it was time to go home, we had a final campfire and I got very ill, very, very sick. I was throwing up at the campfire, shaking like 100 miles an hour, just vibrating. My friend Mike took me up to see the physician. We had a little place where there was a nurse and a doctor. Awful lot of Boy Scouts there. Anyway, she took my temperature coming through the door. She looked at me and took my temp, and it was 106, and that scared her. So they got me on a gurney in a room and came back to check to see if it got any better. It hadn't gotten any better. So they called medical evac, helicopters, and to pick me up, take me into the hospital. And she came in and told me about this, what they were doing, and it's left again. And then the door opened just a minute later or less, and three women walked in. One of them had a tray and a cup. And on that tray was some food and something to drink. And I couldn't eat anything. I was good treasurer with everything in my stomach. I just told her, I can't eat. I can't eat anything. And she looked at me and her eyes, her little smile assured me that I was going to try. And I ate it and my shaking stopped. And I was feeling some better. Then she handed me this little cup of stuff to drink. I drank it. Then I was feeling like 100% cured. And I sat up on the edge of the gurney, and the other nurse came back in. She said, "Oh, lay down. You're not need to be sitting up, whatever." And I just said, "I'm feeling great." There's those other women, I said, came in, other nurses, gave me something, and I feel really good. I feel great. She came over, and my temperature was back to normal. I wasn't shaky, no more vomiting. I was feeling really good. And it all happened in like a minute. And she said, "Leroy, I'm the only woman out here. There were no other women at Camp Bonaparte's." So I count that as a visitation. The other one I know was a visitation because I was a kid and I had a friend out on High Flats who lived in a little town called Nesfield. And it was back 6 miles to Gus Circle's place. And I'd been out there playing all day, did not really want to go home. The sun was starting to go down and I knew I'd better get back. It was going to be dark. I was only about 12. So, yeah, I was trying to get home before it got dark and I didn't make it. I got to what you'd call the High grade, which goes up to the flats from Nesfield. And it's about 1.5 miles down this grade winding road. And there's a woods on one side, a deep wood, but on the other side, a cliff. And I saw and heard the catching of wild dogs. I saw the reflection from their eyes, and I hear a panting and running. And dogs have taken children from that reservation before when they could. Dogs are dogs. Wild dogs are wild dogs. So I was scared, really scared. I knew if I took off running, that I would be dog dinner, whatever. And so I was walking down and I heard a crunch in the gravel to my right on the cliff side. And I didn't see, but I felt this huge being, like a warring angel or something. I just tell this force was beside me that was enormous and all powerful. And the dogs didn't attack. And every time I walked for another crunch of gravel, but I never saw the being. The dogs didn't come and get me. And when we got down to the first street light, it disappeared. The sound was gone. The feeling of that protection was gone, and I made it back home. Wild dogs, if they find something they can take down, they do. And whatever kept them away that night saved my life. That was the other visitation. I did have a connection with heaven, even though I wasn't up there anymore, accepting spirit. I did have that connection. I believe in reincarnation. It's one of those things a lot of people don't like to talk about. But I believe we all are recycled souls with very limited memory, if any, of any of the rest. And offered the idea of equipping us to be the best us we can be. I do have a couple of other memories. One was the before time. Native Americans call the time to walk and talk with the animals. The ones that I know call it the before time. So I had a memory of the before time. And one of being the son of a landlord, serfs that were It was an agricultural area, and it was my job to ride out, check on everybody, see how they were doing, see what they needed. And instead of going out to check with their source, I took a left where I wasn't supposed to go to an area where I wasn't supposed to be at, and met the people that were different than me. Look at it now, I look at history, and they were Picts, Picts, I guess. And dark skinned and fur. And anyway, that's all the spiritual things that have ever happened to me in my life. Or wanted to share that one time with people just once. Thank you for allowing me to do that. God is real, and he doesn't care what religion we are. God just wants a communication. We'll use the word communication with us. Here's kids. And whatever that God is to you, it could be Shiva, or it could be Brahma, it could be any of the rest of them, it doesn't matter. But it's a turn of our hearts toward that power of love and that power, God. So consider, the fact that the NDEs are coming out of the woodwork now. Anyone that had one is usually on Facebook or finding a way to express that. There's books out about it. There wouldn't be so much evidence that this is real, if there is. There is a lot of evidence. And a lot of very reputable people have had the NDEs too and tell them. So we tell them for a reason. Tell them because God is love, and he's all powerful, and God wants, he, she, it, they, doesn't matter. That he wants that communication back with his kids. And he gives the choice to us. That's it, in a nutshell.